Hi, this is Colin from Watch Off the Cuff. Today is a little bit of a departure. I just feel like there's so many things going on. I mean, it's the first week of January, so I guess it's it's quite the first week, the 11th of January. And going into 2025, I just feel like there's so many things happening, and I've got so many things planned and so many things I want to do that I would at least do a quick video to update and even test interest in terms of what people want to do or people want to see. So here I made a quick list here. I can just take a look and see the couple of things that I wanted to cover. So number one, stuff about Watch Off the Cuff in terms of the website this past year. A bunch of amazing stuff happened. Became a Horror-Tech distributor, which was amazing. Became a Bergeron distributor. Very recently added mainsprings, so Rolex mainsprings, Omega mainsprings, and some ETA mainsprings. And then also in the last few months, I've rounded out the stock of Mobius lubricants that are on the website as well. So, that's been a really great adventure, and been really fun to kit out some people that are just getting into the hobby and wanted to get a decent set of screwdrivers or some basic movement, like a movement holder, or just some basic tools to get going, like things like hand levers or hand pressers to reset hands. So that's been really exciting. Also, which is sort of weird but very small, is I bought a watch. So you think, what do you mean you bought a watch? How big a deal is that? I have basically a 10 watch collection. The last watch I bought up until recently was, I think, 6 or maybe 7 years ago, maybe 2018, which was a modern Rolex Datejust 41, dark rhodium dial, fluted bezel, Jubilee bracelet. And then previous to that, I think about 18 months before that, I bought the Tudor steel and gold, the black base steel and gold when it first came out. When I saw it at a release show, and then went on waitlist and purchased it when I was available. And then previous to that, I've got SKX 007, SKX 009. In fact, today it was sort of weird. I decided I was going to wear this SNA 411. I haven't worn this in forever. Anyway, so we have a Milton Watch Club, kind of under the Horological Society of Canada. And we get together once a month in Milton, Ontario, and we're trying to set up some other people as well. But anyway, I ended up buying from one of the members this vintage SEMA, and I just really liked it, and it's in great shape, and I put a new band on it, and I just really enjoy it. You know what? Again, it's like I don't do it. What I end up doing is spending all my money, buying stuff, watchmaking stuff, because I just feel just so inspired and passionate about fixing watches or telling people how to fix watches or whatever. So anyways, I'm always buying equipment, and anyone that's in the watch repair game on the equipment side knows that some of the stuff is brutally expensive. But anyway, so I really love the Horological Society of Canada, that we can do in-person meetups for people and help facilitate that. It started simply because I was doing repairs for people, and I would get talk with them. They'd be watch enthusiasts and be like, "Oh, I just met this other guy that last week was just like you and did this." And they were like, "Really? There's other people around?" I'm like, "Oh my God, they're everywhere." But I ended up being a hub for it. So that was kind of a post COVID thing that I started. Excuse me. And that's taken on a life to its own, and got many new friends out of it, and those friends have become friends with each other, and again, it's just bigger than me. It's amazing. So anyway, so use the Horological Society of Canada as a vehicle for that. Anyway, if you want to check that out, it's horologicalsocietyofcanada.org. Anyway, but out of that, I ended up getting a call before Christmas or whatever, not a call, an email from someone who had said, "Listen, my father passed away a number of years ago. My mother is now downsizing into a condo or something, and we have all this watchmaking stuff." He worked in the 50s and 60s as a watchmaker. Ended up leaving that career and doing something else, but he continued to tinker as he went, and that's what I have in front of me right here. So they said, "Listen, this is who could use this stuff." So they sent me some pictures, and I was able to meet up with them and pick up the equipment. And they still have a full watchmaker's desk, a little watchmaker's desk back where they are. I still have to get that, but everything else, the drawers and everything, and all the other stuff that came with it. So there's a couple of really cool things that I'm going to cover. I don't have a watchmaker's lathe. It's been something I've been looking around for a while. And as part of this former watchmaker, we have a Lorch 8mm lathe. So I don't know when the last time it's run. He passed away a number of years ago. It's been sitting collecting dust. I cleaned it up a little bit. It is not by any means kitted out. There's no cross slide or whatever. There's just a tool rest here, and then we've got a basic set of collets, which is here. And he drove it with this little Singer, probably a if I get the words out, a sewing machine motor. with like a little like custom pulley shiv on there, with a foot control, and then plugged it in. Here we go. So and this was mounted on the corner of the watchmaker's desk. So it's Bakelite, it's chipped. I'm pretty sure. Well, most of this is frayed. If I plug that in, that's done. So this cord will have to be replaced anyway. The cord going into there is done. This foot doesn't even work anymore. So the plan is, and I just have to pick them up, is I'm going to get a 1/3 horsepower AC motor, 230 volt 3-phase, and then I'm going to buy a variable frequency drive. I actually, my previous life sold Fuji, so I have a friend that has a surplus one. 110 volt input. It's going to do 3-phase output to the AC motor. The nice thing about the AC motor is that there's no maintenance to it ever. It's not like a DC motor where there's brushers or you have to maintain it, whatever. It's go. And I'm familiar with the Fuji, small Fuji drive, and it really is like a really good, for a micro drive, a really good, robust one. So I think that the drive itself is sized to drive up to 1 horse or 1.5 horse, but a little 1/3 horsepower AC motor. I'm going to get an IEC. I think it's a little green by Nidec. We're going to put that on, and we're going to try to hook it up. The other thing about this lathe thing, and it's going to be interesting because basically we have like just a very, very, very base setup. I have a facsimile copy, I should grab it, of the master watchmaking course that was in Chicago, and I think this was from 1952. So I looked and said, okay, well, what do I lubricate these things with? And I couldn't get a straight answer. And it's one of these things. I started doing the YouTube channel originally because I was working full time in repair. Was I working full time by then? I think I was. Anyway, and I couldn't find out how to release the crown and stem assembly from a movement. And I'm like, I don't have time. It's churn them and burn them. Like I have work to do. I don't have time to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out the safer or proper way to get rid of this crown and stem assembly. And I looked on the internet, couldn't find anything. So I literally did a 20-second video. So look at the early videos I did. They were 20 or 30 seconds long going, hi, this is at a, 1, 2, 3 quartz movement. You press the button here, you pull this out, you push it back in. You don't have to push the button to put it back in or out or whatever. That was it. And then it sat for a while. I didn't look at it. And then I looked back at it 3 or 4 months. I'm like, wait a minute, people are looking at this. People want to know about this. And then it went anyway. So I digress. Anyway, I can't find anything about easily accessible about like, okay, I got this Lorch 8mm lathe. What do I lubricate it with? And there's conflicting thing. Now, granted, like I have lots of lubricants here, I have all sorts of synthetic and natural lubricants, but I don't know which one to use. So I'm going to talk to the machinist that's actually going to make a pulley here. So that's the other bit. I'm going to have the 1/3 Nidec motor. I'm going to have the machine of the smallest pulley they can make to put it on there to match. This is actually on here is a 3.5mm belt, but these days the 4mm is what you could actually get. The 4mm is going to fit in this groove as well. So he's going to mill a little pulley for me, and then so I can fit it to the Nidec motor, and then I'll have to figure out some way to do it. There's a great video. I'll have to go back. Maybe I'll learn some lessons. Adam Savage from Mythbusters got his tested channel, which I love that channel. He made this amazing, great watchmaker's lathe cabinet, whatever. He had a lot more accessories, but I think one of his fans or somebody had gifted it to him or whatever. And he went through the whole process and went through several iterations of trying to make it work right. But anyway, so hopefully I watched it a long time ago, so hopefully I'll just like zip past any of the issues, which is one of the reasons why I got this little guy right here. A 1/3 horsepower AC motor is probably more than I'm ever going to need on this, but I thought to myself, if I'm going to buy an industrial level controller for the motor, get a 1/3 horsepower motor, and then at least I've got a couple of pieces of hardware that I could use interchangeably with something else if I ever needed it, or if I went to a slightly larger lathe, or who knows what. I figured, you know what, just doing something like this and trying to adapt something similar to what this is, I'm like, this is not gonna, it's not gonna serve me long term. Anyway, so I'm super excited about that. And then with that, from this watchmaker that I was able to acquire this stuff from essentially his life's work as a watchmaker. There were so many great things in there. Like here's a vintage demagnetizer, so it's like, oh my God, it's so great. The instructions are on the bottom, just little things. And I could talk about it forever. So, watches, we've kind of pushing this luxury realm, right? So, everything's like super luxury. Like you get this fancy, it's just out of the thing. You get this fancy super luxury. Now, I love these screwdrivers, but it's like, really going to spend like whatever, say about $700-800 on a set of screwdrivers. And then on top of that, you've got one of these here with the extra barrel, so you have the additional availability, torque, and control to get rid of a bracelet screw, for example. So you're like, so what am I going to do about that? Well, here's his. He just ended up making with a piece of thick tubing. There, it works perfect. It does the deal, and it's kind of like in the spirit of the way watchmakers used to do things then. They would just put it together to make it work and just make it instead of having to buy some fancy thing. Anyway, I just love, you can see examples from his workbench of again and again these situations where he just made what he needed to do the job that he was going to do instead of having someone else buy it from you. Hey, nothing wrong with Ortec and Bergeron, all these great brands, they make great stuff. But to just have them just say, you know what, no, we're just gonna like make the stuff that we need. I just love the spirit of making. Anyway, I couldn't say enough about just like the making of all of that. Anyway, so really inspired by that. All sorts of like cool things. There was a nice Boley staking kit in his set, a poising tool, all these sorts of things that, these days you don't see even on a regular watch. As a commercial watchmaker, like you're not using a poising tool very often. Like you're not checking like, the balance of a balance anymore. Like, it's very, anyway, it's so great to see it from that time. And what that watchmaker had done throughout his career. Like really, and I wrote the family back. I said, he really was a watchmaker, like of the real kind, anyway, so a forgotten area. Anyway, so I'm going to follow up and do the lathe. Once I get some more of the equipment, we're going to figure out what we have to do. We'll see how we actually turn something and make something on it, which would be fantastic. And a few other bits and pieces we go through. I'd also like to do, my plan is, and they've agreed with the family, to do an interview about their father's career as a watchmaker and talk about, what he did, where he went to school, where he worked. Even in some of the desk drawers, there are receipts from watch component repair companies that no longer exist in Canada. It's amazing pre that quartz crisis. How much of an everyday trade it was where people were doing this work. Anyway, just no end of fascination for me. It'd be really interesting to hear about his career and what he did. Anyway, just like it's like a time capsule of the kind of golden age of watchmaking before everything was so brutally industrialized and we could make things so cheap, and there was still this kind of like, purely mechanical era of people wearing mechanical wristwatches around. Before cell phones and, even just before the quartz wristwatch. Anyway, so fascinating. I've gone on long enough. Anyway, so really excited to talk about, show some of this stuff and, get this lathe going, and that's to come. So anyway, thanks again. Always watching. I'm really pumped for 2025 and what it holds. Hopefully I haven't opened up Pandora's box in terms of like buying watches again. But it was such a great experience. I've just enjoyed it so much. And as a result, I'm going back and wearing other watches in my collection as well. Anyway, till next time, thank you very much. Cheers, more videos on the way.